Hello everyone with the Jewish Week Online. I'm your host, Aaron Herman. How did Jews survive the Holocaust? Some were hidden and some had to find innovative ways to escape the Nazis. We had the opportunity to be with director Janet Tobias and caver Chris Nicola on their new movie, No Place on Earth. Let's take a closer look.
I'm a New Yorker, but my passion is exploring caves. I was in Ukraine when I stumbled over some objects. Those objects were someone's life. Western Ukraine was one of the worst places for Jews during the war.
We were hiding, and Mother says, Nissel, you gotta find a place. We cannot live like this.
38 of us descended into the cave.
We got down and we started sliding in.
My God, I've got a playground here.
No human being had ever set foot there.
We came there almost without food.
A glass of water was for a family.
We were very hungry.
All of a sudden, we hear shooting.
And my mother said to the kids, hide any place you can.
Everybody started to run in different directions. They took my mother away. I'll never see her again.
The Russians, the Germans, who knows what's outside. The villagers came with the shovels and they filled up the halls.
People are screaming, open up the exit, but they can't do it.
3 days and 3 nights, we were working, everybody.
And I look up and I see a star.
One day I come out, there is this.
And we were liberated. So everybody was crying.
They survived underground for over a year and a half.
I forgot that there was a sun.
Here I am, back.
I wanted to say thank you to the cave.
I felt like I'm going back in time.
We beat the odds.
The cave was fighting for me.
They didn't get us. We didn't tell it to others because it was just too incredible.
Let's close all the lights for a minute. No, I feel good.
There are some movies that when you first read about the synopsis, you can't really get a sense of what it is. And your movie transcends a synopsis because the visuals and the story are so heartening. First, talk a little bit about why you created this movie.
It was simply one of the best adventure survival stories I'd ever heard. I'd never heard a Holocaust story like this one before. It's a story of about family, friendship, the bonds of brotherhood, an incredible mother, and what you can accomplish with all that.
You're an experienced cave diver, and you were looking to find out about your family and go into Ukraine. When you first went into the cave, what were some of your feelings when you were descending and then finding some of the remnants of what the survivors left behind?
Well, I have to admit the main reason that I went to that area was I was lucky enough to get an invitation from a local caver to come visit the giant Egyptian caves. Cavers and speleologists worldwide know these caves are very unique, and part of the reason they're unique is they tend to be very voluminous and long, have complicated labyrinth type structures. So that was the main purpose, to get the cavers high, so to speak.
Right.
And I always seem to be one of the oldest people in a group when I go visit foreign cavers for some reason. So I was following some younger cavers, local cavers, and I felt like I was being whisked by a very interesting sight. We were moving very fast. I'm looking at old buttons. I'm looking at earthen tables. Whoever was there had dug trenches, so you had earthen benches and tables, remains of shoes. And I tried to slow them down. I said, wait a second, what is this? I said, this just old things left here by other people. And there was a language problem. Years later, I would ask some of the same young cavers, how come we didn't spend time when you initially brought me into this cave? And the younger cavers will say, Chris, no disrespect meant, but we're young. We look for new passages, not old shoes. But seeing the remnants of things from the past there, artifacts, I realized right away, whoever had lived in that cave had lived there not just for a matter of several days, meaning they weren't a local caving party. Whoever lived there for a significant period of time. And I remember coming out of the cave the first few times. And yes, I was thrilled to have seen the long passages and some of the newer discoveries made by the young cavers. My mind kept going back to those shoes. You know, what was either a young woman, a young girl, or a little boy's shoe doing in that cave? And it just started to irk me. And over the next few years, I started to try to find more and more out about it. But it fascinated me almost upon first sight. But that wasn't the original purpose to go in.
Right. Whenever you're putting together a story to a movie, there are different parts that you have to find like the right balance. So how did you find like your story? Like everyone has their own way to interpret what happened, and because it's a documentary style. But how did you put it all together?
We really created a hybrid, the team, right? And it's a blend of drama and doc. And did that after a lot of thought, because I'm actually not a fan of a lot of bad reenactment. It sort of takes you out of the story. But in this case, I thought we had one incredibly powerful things is, this is the last time we will hear from eyewitnesses, from people who said it happened to me. And they are great storytellers, the Stermers, and Chris is a great storyteller of his obsession to find out who the Stermers were. But I thought that the Stermers were actors in their environment. And they were, as Esther says, masters of their own fate. And then to show what they did and to have people begin to sense the mud, the claustrophobia, the darkness, we needed to use drama to help people experience that, and also to remember that they were really young. They were your age and younger, right? And it's really easy sometimes to forget that, to forget what they accomplished. So we created this hybrid, which we thought was the best way of blending the actual facts and the eyewitness testimony with the experience, with a theatrical experience of what it was like to live in the cave for 511 days, 344 uninterrupted days.
That was actually one of the really interesting parts of the movie, where that blends, like between you going to the cave and then showing the reenactment. It was like you were thrown into so many different emotions, because you saw your emotion, and then towards the end, you actually saw when they were going down into the cave. It was just like there's a lot of different moments that I think resonated with the audience, especially at the end when they're actually trying to go into the cave, and then you go with the granddaughter down to the cave. What was that like?
It's yours.
That was one of the most emotional periods I've ever experienced in my life, because I discovered that Esther Stermer had, in my opinion, somewhat predicted that was going to happen. And I came back from that trip believing in something I've marked my entire life, fate, that some things are preordained. And I actually came back with a couple of new Jewish words. I think the words are bashert. Some things are meant to happen. And it was amazing too. When you accept that there are some things that are meant to happen, and it means there's some things you can't change, there's no need to worry about them, and it takes a weight off your shoulders. So this project affected me for life. There was another very emotional moment. The day after the brothers made the attempt to go into Priest Grotto, the first cave, I was in the place that we were staying at, and I went down to the eating area early. I tend to be an early riser, and was shocked to see Sam, the younger brother, there before me. And he said, I've been up since 5:30. And he said, I had a dream last night. I dreamt of my mother, And I dreamt I was picking her up from temple the way I used to, and she was dressed in the finest dress, and she looked at me and said, "It's okay, son, you don't have to wait for me, I can go by myself."
Wow. How did the community, relate to you during filming? How's the relationship?
You mean the local
Locals,
community?
yeah. Obviously, when you're going to these locations, there's a lot of...
It's not all a happy story,
Yeah.
There's some shades of the dark from the past. I mean, historically, it's well known that many of the Ukrainians collaborate with the Nazis. With that being said, there was one Polish family and one Ukrainian family that stuck by the Stermers, and they helped them in terms of sometimes giving them food to survive. But you could feel the tension in the air, and sadly, the Soviet resistance fighters known as the Bandera, in some circles in Western Ukraine are looked upon as national heroes, and they murdered many Jews. So.
What are you hoping audiences will take away from the film?
I think it's a film about the power of the bonds of family and friendship, that those bonds really matter. Those bonds keep you alive. They make you do impossibly brave things if you're a teenage boy or a young man. And I think I also take away from that Esther Stermer was one tough cookie, right? She questioned authority. She read 4 newspapers in multiple languages, which led her to believe that it wasn't going to be okay, and that questioning authority and questioning your environment and knowing as much as you can is of great value, right? That it protects you too.
Did anything surprise you as you were filming?
I think I was surprised. I was surprised a little bit in Ukraine by, I think when traumatic, life-changing things happen to us, that a part of us remains that age forever. So for the 4 survivors you see in the film, that you could feel that they went back to the age they were when it happened to them, which was about 21, 14, 8, and 4, and that their memories and experience are from that perspective, and each of those are quite different. And I maybe should have known that as a filmmaker, but it was really apparent when we were there. And
I can agree. There's one scene where I'm leading Saul Stermer, the older of the 2 brothers, into the first cave, the Tabor Cave, and I felt like he was looking at things the way he did 67 years before that, and that I was privileged to be there with him. It was almost like going in a time machine, going back in time. It was an amazing feeling.
Yeah, there was a scene at the end when they said turn off the lights.
That's actually what I was going to say. Is that's the final
Right.
thing that would surprise me, which is
Right.
at the end of the day, the world turned upside down. The dark, scary place of ghosts and nightmares became the safe mother place that protected them. And as Esther writes, the evil spirits were outside. And so the cave was their partner and their friend. Nature was their friend, and human beings were their enemies.
Yeah.
And as a caver, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, that's it.
Now, as a caver, exploring caves for over 35 years, I can tell you I'm comfortable in a cave. I'm more comfortable in a cave than on the street. In fact, I tend to get claustrophobic now only upon the first 2 or 3 days back in New York. Because you have to understand, I could be out there on expeditions for 3, 4, 5 weeks and see sometimes just 6 people. It's unbearable my first 3 days back to work when I'm using the subway and the bus, and within a half hour, I'm within 3 feet of 500 people. But when I'm caving, I'm comfortable. And the Stermers will tell you, most of them will tell you, when they think back to where they were, that was the security blanket. They felt comfort in the darkness. And as Janet mentioned, they were masters of their own fate. Just as Esther said in her memoirs, when they were trying to figure out where they would go, they said, wherever we go, we need to be masters of our own fate. And they ended up discovering one of the longest caves in the world, an underground universe. So they were masters of their own fate.
No, it's when seeing you maneuver in the caves and then go back to like the reenactments, like you kind of feel like, wow, this is like they actually did this. Like this, it was like instinct. They didn't have the tools, didn't have the psychological preparation to go into this. They did like, it's go time. You gotta go, and that's it.
And again, they were amateurs when they went in a cave, but they, through trial and error, thinking out of the box, they taught themselves to be world-class cavers.
I think I often think I or lots of people in the modern world wouldn't make it, right? They were actors. They created sleds, they built beds, they did things. They weren't contemplating how bad it was, what the philosophically meant. They knew they had to get things done, and they were master actors on their environment.
As you can see, No Place on Earth is a powerful film about Jewish resistance and survival. This is Aaron Herman, and thank you for watching.